Here's a question for you. What's your plan to reach out to those young people who stop coming to your youth activities? Hi there, welcome to this week's episode of The Heart of a Youth Leader. My name's Andy Castle. These are short weekly podcasts and YouTube videos to inspire and encourage all those of us involved in youth and children's work in the church. Please do share it with your team if you find it useful. Do hit the subscribe button if you like it. That would be really helpful to us. Great news is we've had over 5,000 downloads of these episodes we hit recently. So I'm really encouraged by that. And thank you so much for all those of you who listen and watch. So the question I'm asking this week is, what's your plan? What's your strategy for reaching those young people who stop coming to your youth work for whatever reason? So much of what we do inevitably evolves around activity, evolves around the youth group or the youth club or the Bible study or the Sunday morning worship time. What do you do? What is your plan? What is your strategy for keeping connection with those young people who just start drifting away? And I'm really struck by how many youth workers and youth leaders haven't thought this through. We have a very attractional model of ministry that if you come, we'll engage with you. But if you choose not to come, well, then we'll just wait for you to come back. And I get it, because it's hard to know how to keep reaching individuals. It's much easier if you come, I can engage with you, but if you don't, then there's not much we can do, or we rely on parents to be doing the nurturing and the challenging. But how do we display the love of Jesus to those young people who choose not to come back? And this came to a head for me recently. I was at a wedding and I met someone who was in my youth group 20 odd years ago, and was one of those people who never really quite fitted in with what we were doing youth-wise. But I reached out and I invited them to join in with what we're doing and to actually help me to lead the younger youth, so that they felt that they had something to give. And it was, they were telling me how it was actually that positive personal contact that enabled them to feel like they had a role to play in church life and to engage in their faith. And we've got to be creative and reach one person at a time. And it reminds me of what the parable Jesus taught in Luke chapter 15, when he says, "Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbours together and says, 'Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who do not need to repent." Such a well-known parable, isn't it? And we use it so often. And yet, what do we do to implement it? This would have been a really well-known situation for the people that Jesus was talking to. They would have seen how profitable owning sheep was, and it was a high trade, and therefore, and a lot of people would aspire to having flocks of sheep. And of course, you don't lose any sheep because that's where the money is. And the way Jesus describes it is that 1 out of 100, just 1%, just goes drifting, just goes missing, and the shepherd's counting them up and counts to 99, doesn't fall asleep counting the sheep. That's interesting. and realizes one is missing. He doesn't go, well, I've still got 99, so that'll be good, let me keep these 99 safe. He goes, no, hang on, you lot stay here, I'm going to go and find this missing sheep. And he leaves the 99 because he trusts that they're safe in their numbers. and goes, where on earth is this lost sheep? And he goes into the open country. Just picture that. It's like, well, if you've ever been lost in the countryside, it's so hard to know where to find a road, or so hard to know your way back to the car park, or whatever it may be. And the shepherd is looking and going, where is this sheep? And he searches and he searches, looking everywhere till he finds the sheep. And then he doesn't reprimand the sheep for going away. He joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home, goes back to the other sheep. And they have a party because he's found it. How much does that translate into what we try and do with those young people who drift away from what we do? And what's your plan? Do you have a plan? When we have a register, we're not just taking it for our safeguarding on the evening. It's also a really useful way of noticing when people don't turn up, when people are starting not to come, and to send a message, to send a card, to knock on the door and say, we missed you last night. Where were you? What were you up to? We're not making them feel guilty. We're not making them feel obligated that they must be at what we're doing, but we're building relationship. We're building trust with them. We're showing that we care, and we're going, what's happening? And they might go, oh, no, it's fine. I wasn't very well. Or no, it's fine. I had a school thing. Or they might be going, actually, I just don't really feel like I fit in. Or I just don't really connect with all this. When I was appointed youth minister in a church, youth pastor in a church, I was told by the previous youth pastor that the 14 to 18 youth group was going to be my favourite activity. It runs itself. There's more than 50 young people in the youth group. Andy, you're just going to love it so much. I turned up for the first session, first week in the job. 4 young people turned up. And I was like, oh my goodness, they've not even met me and they've all left. Now I could have gone, oh, well, let's just keep going with that. But I chose a different option. I contacted every single person and asked them for some feedback on how the last couple of years have been. I asked them for what they wanted the youth work to look like, why they would want to be part of the youth work, and why they wouldn't want to be part of the youth work. And I, it was, I got a voucher and said, look, if you can fill in this questionnaire as well, I'll pick a winner at random and you can have a voucher. And that got really good engagement, particularly from the fringe young people whose parents go to church, but they don't go to church. Young people who really don't get a living faith. They see Christianity as a religion rather than a relationship. And I would meet up and I would have, a coffee, or they'd have a milkshake probably, and we would just chat and I'd just say, tell me what's going on. It's so helpful to in that situation to hear, to listen, and then we started to rebuild the youth work, and it grew and it grew, and it was wonderful. But then it was always about checking in with those who can't come. But it's also about remembering things like birthday cards and sending notes of encouragement when you know they're going through a hard time. When they're going through the exam season, creating a prayer diary so that you're praying for each person and they know that you're praying. You send a little message saying, hope it went well, or how did it go, or praying for you as you go into your physics A-level, or whatever it may be that you know about that individual. And it's not doing it just as a tick list. I think sometimes we can send birthday cards to all our young people, but it's really obvious this has just been done as an admin task. There's no personal message in it about saying why you love having that person in your youth group. It just is purely a generic card that's obviously been written as an admin task and not a relationship building task. We need to be personal, we need to be intentional, and we need to love unconditionally, especially those sheep that go wandering, those sheep that disconnect from what we do. So my challenge this week is come up with a plan. You and your volunteers and your team, those you lead with, come up with an intentional plan for going after the sheep that leave from the fold, and do all you can to bring them back into the flock with the other 99. Have a great week. Go for it.